Good evening. Good evening. Good evening to everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of Coinversations with Claire Munde. We're glad to have you on, and today we're going to have a very exciting conversation, and it's all about scholarships. I saw the people who had signed up, and I can see there's a lot of interest, which is a good thing because you're looking to improve yourself. You want to further your education, you want to improve your skills, make yourself more marketable, because this is the time when you need to have a lot of skills, because if you're not multi-skilled, then you may be redundant sooner than later. So I'm very excited about our guest this evening, and I'll let him introduce himself because he has so many titles. I'll just give you a brief of who he is. Then he will tell us the very many hats he wears. Dennis Otieno is a very good friend of ours, a good friend of the show, and he is a researcher currently pursuing a PhD in the UK. He'll tell us a little bit more about that. He's also a student counselor, so this is the right place. You are going to be dealing with somebody who knows the ins and outs of looking for a scholarship, looking for to study abroad, how to avoid being conned and whatnot. And some of the areas of his research include organizational behavior, diversity and inclusion, women's matters, which I'm very passionate about, and much more. But let me just stop there, and I'll let Dennis speak a little bit more. But if you are tuned in, please share the link to this LinkedIn event with your friends and colleagues. I'm sure there's somebody in your family or among your friends who wants to study, whether it's locally or abroad, and wants to know how to go about it. So this is the place to be in, and we're very appreciative because this is a long weekend. It's Madaraka Day tomorrow, and I know people are having fun. So thanks for taking time to be here with us. At Coinversations with Claire Munde, we talk about anything that affects your financial wellness. If it affects your pocket, we talk about it. So over to you, Dennis. Tell us more about yourself. I know I've just touched a tip of the iceberg. Tell us a little bit more about yourself, and then we will get that conversation going.
Yeah, thank you, Claire. I think I will just put it. I'll just keep it short, though. My name is Dennis. I I basically consider myself to be a researcher by primary work that I do. So I'm a PhD researcher at the University of Liverpool, and my research revolves around organizational behavior. I've got keen interest on equality, diversity, inclusion, mistreatment in the workplace, and social justice as a whole. So that is where my research is concentrated. Beyond that, as you've said, I also do student counseling. I'm a certified student counselor by the British Council. My certificate is 12995, if I'm not forgotten. I'm certified by the British Council to counsel and guide students when it comes to matters of education, especially in the United Kingdom. And I'm also a chartered manager, and a member of the CIPD, that is the HR body in the UK. I teach, I'm a lecturer, at several universities here in the UK. I'm already out of work. I forgot to remove my badge, which I'm removing. But yes, so those are some of the things that I do. So when it comes to the UK education system, I think I know it. I can probably say I know it in and out, and I can probably offer some insights as far as scholarship on the general study abroad is concerned. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that. And I like that you've mentioned your number for as a counselor, because sometimes people, and we'll talk about that during this conversation, there are people who are purporting to be experts and certified, but they're not. So it's good to know that you actually are certified to counsel people. And I'll be sharing some of your contacts, whether it's on X and LinkedIn, so that people can really just talk to you in case they need more information. But I'd like us to get straight into the conversation. And we're talking all about scholarships. There are people who want to further their studies. There are some who are looking to get their first degree, whether it's a bachelor's degree. Then there are others who are looking to go for the master's. Then there are others who want to go for a PhD. But first and foremost, help us understand what are the types of funding that somebody can look at, because whenever we think of funding, the first thing that comes to mind is a scholarship. But is the scholarship the only method of funding? And if not, what are the other options that people have? And what is a scholarship exactly? What does it entail? Then we'll go from there.
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. So I'll just put it into perspective. I've just written it somewhere here to just give you a bit of a brief of what it costs to study abroad, especially, so that you understand then how scholarship comes into being here. First of all, to study in a university in a country like the UK is super expensive, super, very, very expensive for an average person. Of course, expensive is relative, but for an average person, that will be very expensive. So we are talking about as high as 50,000 a year, pounds, 50,000 pounds a year to study in a top UK university. That will be equivalent for a Kenyan, that will be about 10 million.
10 million per
10 million
year.
per year to study in the UK.
And that is is that a bachelor's, a master's, or a PhD?
There's usually no major difference.
Okay.
So that would be actually, as the higher you go towards PhD, it becomes slightly cheaper.
Aha.
So it's not as people think that if you go to PhD, it becomes more expensive.
Yeah, that's what someone would think. Yeah.
Yeah. So if we take maybe an average university, like let's say Edinburgh, you want to go and do MBA. Last year they were charging, I think, £46,000 per year for a PhD student. I mean, for an MBA student there. So if you're to assume maybe such a course, or maybe a course that will take 3 years, you're talking about 30 million.
Yeah.
To put in there. And then you have to prove funds that you are capable of taking care of yourself in the UK. If you are in London, you will need £1,334, and that is approximately 250,000 per month for up to 9 months.
Wow.
You might not spend it really, but you have to show that you have that money. In reality, but you have to show before you get even a visa. So you have to show the government, I've got 250 for every year that I'll be in London. This is the money I have.
Wow.
And if you're outside London, you have to show them that you have got about 200,000. That is £1,023, depending on the conversion rate.
And let me ask you, I want us to go step by step. As you talk, I want us to just keep on talking about it. This 250,000 that you're showing that you have, can it be like the way a bank has collateral? I have land that is worth 10 million, or it has to be the liquid cash in your bank account?
No, it has to be liquid cash in your account.
So land doesn't cut it.
It doesn't cut it. For example, it has to be in your account for at least 28 continuous days. And that is actually, we speak about the UK, where the financial terms, I find them to be a bit flexible. 28 days is not too long.
Yeah.
Other countries might want it to be there for 3 months, but the UK, they want 28 continuous days.
Yeah.
And when you print the statement, you take it to them. The statement should not be older than 30 days from the date of printing. So you see,
Wow.
So you have to show them that you have got all that amount of money, that we're going to be talking about some millions again on top of that. Then you need to pay for your visa. That is not a visa fee. You need to pay for your visa. Visa is 490. It's not per year. £490, which is about another 90,000 shillings, to pay for the visa charges. And in the UK, we also have something called health surcharge. So you pay for health insurance, basically. And that has now been increased to £1,035 per year per person.
Wow.
So we're talking about 180,000 for every year you'll be in the UK, for every person you're bringing to the UK.
Wow.
So if you're coming, you and your family, to do a 3-year course, it's 180 times 3 years times the 3 family.
Times 3. Wow.
Then add that to your fee. Then add the cost of visa per person. So, and then you still have to of course get a flight and other things. So it's super expensive. So that's the first thing we must understand. So I find it very difficult to get so many students who can fund their own education, especially very top universities.
Yes.
So there are options, though. You can have several options. One of the options I tell students is that depends with what you really, really want. Because in the UK, there are universities that can be 4 times as cheap as that. Can you believe? Yeah. So let's say you go to University of Bolton, for example, or University of Cumbria, for example, or a university like Central Lancashire, for example. You'll be paying probably 15,000 a year, not 46,000, 15,000 for the same course. Of course, the status of the university.
Yes.
the name.
Prestige, yes.
Yeah, so if that's number one, you should consider what you can afford. You can go to a law university. Then, if you can talk to the university, most universities allow you to have flexible payment. Some will allow you up to 7 installments. Some do not allow you such flexibility. They just allow you to pay the deposit, and before you register, pay the remaining fee.
Wow. Before you set foot.
So you have to pay full fees, full
Hey.
fee before you start studying. So it's a bit of hectic.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but if you can get a cheaper university, then that's fine. So, what are the options then? One, you can get a cheaper university, and you can ask them for flexible payments, which we negotiate for students all the time. Because please support the student more, and they give the students some flexibility in their payment. So that can be done. That can be done. Another thing that you can do probably is to ask for discounts. Funny enough, this tuition fees are subject to discount.
Really?
Yes, yes. Because you
Hey.
will be given a fee statement and a fee
Structure.
offer. And you'll be told, yeah, you know what, you're supposed to pay 16,000. So if you don't know, you will pay. But if you know how to go about it and talk for yourself, you'll end up paying maybe 3,000-4,000 less. You'll pay 12,000.
Wow. You see why you should always negotiate.
And know how to negotiate. So
Yeah.
sometimes you end up in a class, you find a student paying 16,000, seated with a student paying 13,000, seated with a student paying 16,000.
Oh my goodness. Oh my.
So that's another thing.
You know,
So
I
that's
never
one.
knew that. I never knew for fees that you can negotiate. My goodness. Okay.
You can, but not all universities and not always that they will agree.
Okay.
Sometimes they can agree, depending on what you basically can. So they can give you a discount for being an international student. They can give you a discount if you performed so well. They can give you a
Okay.
discount because you come from sub-Saharan Africa. There are some ways you can work. So
Uh-huh.
if you're always told 16,000, let's say for University of Central Lancashire 16,000, in my mind I know I can always get a student to get in for 13, 12.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's what happens. If you can't do that, then another option will just to be work and pay, which I never encourage. I know people do it, but I never encourage students to do it.
Work and pay from when you're in Kenya, work to save the money to pay, or when you're there, because when you're there,
When
isn't
you're
it
in the
like
UK,
20 hours?
when you're in the UK, you can you can you can work and pay, but it's not a good thing. And I never tell any of my clients to take an offer on a basis that they'll work to pay their fee.
Okay, let's go back a little bit. If you're thinking of working and paying, how feasible is that? Because I mean, the last time I checked, it was 20 hours that you are allowed to work. Now, what kind of money are you going to earn in 20 hours per week to fund a 30 million course? Or just enlighten us on that working to pay.
You can do it on a 30 million course, but I see students doing it on maybe a 10,000 course. So what happens here? So they will take a 12,000 course, and before they come to the course, of course, you have to pay the deposit
Yeah.
for you to get the final offer. So students will pay most of the fee upfront. So they will probably pay, let's say, 7,000 or 5,000 or 6,000. Then the remaining balance, they negotiate with the university to give them about 7 installments to pay, and then they come and work. But as I said, I never encourage someone to do that.
Yeah.
You are only allowed 20 hours to work. Even if you are paid, let's say most student jobs right now in the UK pay about £12 per hour. Actually, that's an increase because we basically got a bit of an increase for student jobs. So if these students come and do for a week, they'll be earning £240.
£240, yeah.
£240. If they try their best, they will probably get £1,000 a month.
Exactly.
You still have to eat, you still have to clothe yourself, you still have to do other things. So
Exactly.
This is when you find students doing illegal things.
Yeah.
Like working extra against the visa rules.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not cash in hands, so I never encourage students to take it. A few students might be lucky to get better jobs that pay them £20-25. Maybe they can try, but how many can be guaranteed such a job? So that is what makes it super, super, super difficult. And I never encourage anybody. I've actually discouraged people from planning and say, I'm coming to work and pay. Because one, we will never see you in class, first of all. You'll be working. So
Yeah.
you will not be studying, you'll be working. And you'll be breaking the rules. And the university will report you to the home office and you'll be deported. That's a chain reaction that can really happen. Honestly, that can really happen.
It's not fun, yeah.
Claire, it's not fiction. It happens. It actually
It's
happens.
true.
In real life, yeah.
It's a
Students
mess.
appear for 7 classes, a tutor raises an alarm, it goes to the management, admin investigates, the student is sought, they are found working in a warehouse for 40 hours a week. Yeah,
Oh no.
that's a legal issue now. It's no longer a school issue.
Yeah.
So that happens. So never plan to pay through work.
Through work,
in the
yeah.
UK.
Yeah.
Work in the UK should be for your own comfort and
Yeah.
maybe send your parents and people back home. That's it. So the only viable option here probably is get funding through a scholarship. So there are 3 tiers that I always think about. One is government funded. So governments do fund these things. So we have got Chevening, for example, is a UK government funded scholarship by UK government to most people from Commonwealth countries. So students get it. So many of them come to the UK on Chevening scholarships. Very competitive. The success rate, I think, is 3%. Success rate of Chevening. If I'm not getting wrong, the last time I checked, it's 3%.
Wow.
And imagine, which means for every 100 people applying, only 3 get.
3, yeah.
Imagine that this is a scholarship where you must return to your home country upon completion. So you are not working after. Yeah, if you complete, the rule is that you must leave. So even the UK government cannot give you another visa because that's their term. So yeah, I see that happening a lot. And when the students are almost finishing, they start regretting a little bit that why did I take this now?
Oh, because they want to work.
Yeah, I wanted to come and work for maybe 2 years before going back home. But they told, no, we cannot get a visa.
Yeah. Wow. Well,
Just a moment.
Okay, yeah, so you have to come back to your home country. You have to come back to Kenya. No working there, but you can visit. It's just working you cannot.
Yeah, it's just working that you cannot work.
Yeah, so no employer can sponsor you in the UK.
Yes. Basically, the terms of the visa say of the funding says that you must leave the country upon completion.
Okay. But now, as you said, Chevening is like, yeah, it's highly competitive. That 3% of people who get it. But this is now a fully funded scholarship. That's from the visa to the fees to the accommodation to a stipend, or how do they call it exactly?
Stipend.
Yeah.
So they fund everything: your fee, your stipend, your travel, everything.
Wow.
Basically, you can come to the UK and just sit and study.
Sit.
Study.
And then now that brings me to something else that we'll answer. I know we're stepping a few steps ahead, but now that you've brought it up, maybe we talk about it a bit. You said, okay, you get everything is funded. You just come back and sit. But are there some restrictions in that, let's say you're supposed to keep your grades at a certain level to continue having the funding, or if you've gotten the funding, that's good, that's it. If you sit your exam and you fail, it doesn't really matter whether you graduate with distinction or you just barely make it.
It doesn't matter, provided you successfully complete.
Because anyway, to get it in the first place, you have to be brilliant.
Of course. You see now, that's why it's 3% of success rate.
Yeah.
So that by the time you are chosen, they're sure with some degree of certainty that you'll actually succeed. Or you have got a probability of succeeding.
Okay, so now you have the government scholarships. You said there are 3 avenues that we can think of. There's the government ones like the Chevening.
Yeah, so there's government.
I think you're on mute. As Dennis comes back, if you have any questions about scholarships, please feel free to put them in the comments section and Dennis will answer them as we go along. I think we have already started getting so much knowledge, like that issue of bargaining, negotiating for your salary to, not your salary, for the fees to be reduced is something that I didn't know. And I think just as Coinversations is, it's all about always bargain. Always ask, can I get a discount? If there's none, well and good. If there is, good. So don't ever let a chance go by for you to ask if there's a chance to get a discount. So that's a very good point. Dennis, are you back? If you're back, you can unmute your mic so that we can hear what you're saying. I think he's having a bit of an issue. But as I said, please continue to put your questions in the comment section and we will sample them as we go along. So as Dennis said, the cost can go upwards of 30 million for a 3-year course. So if you're thinking of doing your bachelor's degree and it takes an average of 3 years, then you might be looking at 10 million per year. And it can be very prohibitive. And then that's just the fees. Then you have to think about the visa, you have to think about the plane tickets, you need to think about your accommodation and whatnot. And the rules for working when you're a student in the UK are that you can only work a maximum of 20 hours per week. And as he said, the pay might be between 12 to 20 pounds. So if you're thinking of working to supplement the fees, that may not be very viable, and you don't want to get into a situation where he said you're working illegally and then you put yourself at risk of being deported and just mess everything. So I think those are very important points that are being brought out here. Dennis, if you can unmute, then we can continue with the conversation. And I think as we're waiting for him, I think he has a bit of a connection issue.
Sorry,
Are you?
Sorry, I was having some sort of an incident, a fire incident. So
Oh, sorry.
please give me a moment to settle. Then I talk about it. Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, things can happen sometimes, but I can see some questions are already streaming in. Maybe you can tell us some of the things that you want answered during this webinar. I can already see some comments that are already streaming in, and we will answer them as we go along. Dennis, I can see you're back.
Yeah, I can handle it from here, I think.
Okay. Sorry about that. Is everything all right? I can see some questions here. In the meantime, maybe I can just be sampling them. Elizabeth Njiru says, does the same rule apply for other universities across Europe and Canada? And she also asked, do you need a blocked account to study in the UK and Canada? Dennis will answer those once he comes back. Joy is asking how we can contact Dennis for further inquiries. We will leave his contacts at the bottom of this live broadcast at the end of it, and then you can reach out to him. He does offer his services, and maybe you can talk to him and see how he can help you. You can say your specific needs, and then he will get back to you. So as we are waiting for that, maybe we can just do a recap of what he has told us about some of the requirements for somebody who wants to study. You may want to be studying for your bachelor's degree, you might want to be studying for your master's, or you may be looking to do a PhD. And as he said that despite what people think that the higher you go, the higher the fees might be, but that's not necessarily the case. Bachelor's degrees might even be higher. So the PhD, when you're doing your research, may not be as high. So it's a small difference in the fees as you go higher, bachelor's, master's, and the PhD. But what you need to consider is bank statements. It's not like a bank loan. You know, the way a bank loan, you give your collateral, whether it's a piece of land that's worth that 10 million that he's talking about per year. Here it needs to be your bank statement. It needs to show that you have that amount of fees in your account, but the rules are not that stringent. It doesn't have to be like 3 months, because there's some countries that say you need to have a bank statement that is shows that money has been in the account for at least 3 months or even 6 months. But for this particular situation, it just needs to be there for about a month. That's 30 days. So that's something to know. To note that you can have your bank statements with the required amount for at least 30 days, which you can get show to the university, and then you can go ahead. If you are self-funding, you can talk to the university and see how you can get a discount. So Dennis, you're back.
Yeah, I'm back.
Is everything all right?
Yeah, everything is all right. I've gone to a different floor. Hopefully, I'm safe here now.
Okay, sorry about that. In Kenya, I don't want to hate. In Kenya, you hear a fire alarm, you continue with your things. No.
I can't ignore. It's not actually. It's just a small incident, though.
Okay, sorry about that. So I was just doing a recap of what you are telling us about if you're self-funded, the kind of things that you will need. But you are telling us about the different routes that you can take. You are talking about 3 routes, whether it's government funded, like the chevening, which is highly competitive. Now you can give us the second option that we can, if we are now pursuing those scholarships.
So the second option is even more stringent. It's a private sector funding. Yeah, and organizations do fund their own employees. I know a few people have been funded by their own employers, especially in the UK and back in Kenya, to come and do their PhD and their other degrees. But beyond that, also these organizations also fund people who are not their own employees. For example, we have Mastercard. Mastercard scholarships are some of the most prestigious ones. And the people who win Mastercard scholarships really speak highly about those scholarships. So it's possible. You can also take the private sector scholarships. The third and the most common one, however, is just applying for funding through the university itself. But many universities that advertise for positions, especially postgraduate research, specifically postgraduate research positions, they also always give funding to those who are successful in those roles. So it's something that someone can consider. It's something that somebody can consider as well. And I can tell you a few places where you can apply those university funding.
Okay, thanks for that. I can see the Joy Miner was asking how we can get in touch with you. I think I will leave his contacts at the bottom of this webinar. After, you can get in touch with him and he can show you how to go about it. But I think those are three avenues that you've talked about. There's the government, then there's the organizations like the Mastercard Foundation, which you talked about. But you're saying that's even more stringent than the one that has 3%. So this one is what percent? But anyway, you'll tell us the nitty-gritty of that. And then just going directly to the universities and asking them what kind of funding is available. So probably you'll share with us some of those resources that we can go into. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about how you can position yourself to get that scholarship. So sometimes very many times we hear about there's the merit based, there's the people who get scholarship based on extracurricular activities that they're doing that they're very good at. What are some of the avenues that people can get scholarships in? Is it purely I had A's throughout and now I qualify for that scholarship? Can it be that I was very good at a sport or at a certain skill that I can use to make myself stand out? What are some of the things that I can use to position myself to stand out, to be one of those 3 out of the 100 that gets those scholarships?
Yeah. So actually, to be honest, it's to just say it bluntly, it's extremely difficult to win a scholarship. Extremely difficult. Now that difficulty even becomes 3 times more if you are talking about undergrad or master's degree. It's much better and maybe I can call it much easier, or as you go towards PhD, because more funding is available for PhD students. So that is the reality of things. But what can you do? The conditions of of scholarships are dependent on the person floating the scholarship. Okay, the institutions will determine what they want. Okay, so there are those institutions that can say probably we are giving scholarships to women and women only. Others will come and say we want only from black men or people from arid and semi-arid areas. Others will say we want people who can participate in athletics. So there is no standard baseline for all that. But one thing remains for sure is that you must be good academically. That's for real. So these other skills and talents are just avenues that help you to reach the to just get to the door. But you cannot go there just by being an athletic alone. You just
Wow.
have to be good academically. You just have to be very, very good in your academia. So forget all the slander that first class and distinctions get in Kenya. I'm telling you, people value distinction and first class outside of Kenya. That
Wow.
is for sure.
I think that's a very important point that you're bringing out, because sometimes they say that there are students that are not interested in academics. They're just very good at whether it's basketball or whatever other extracurricular activity it is, and the parents are told, just let them focus on that and they can get a scholarship. So you're saying that that's not enough. Your son, your daughter is very good at this, but they also have to have the papers, good grades to back it up. It's not enough to be a star footballer or basketballer or whatever. You need to have your grades in check as well.
Definitely. The primary focus or the primary reason why we have scholarship is not to train athletes. We are not recruiting athletes. If you were to recruit athletes or people to recruit athletes, they will probably go for scouting. The sports scouting, where you go to clubs and pick up the best players and all that. The main reason why we have academic scholarships is to recruit academics.
Wow.
Or people who can survive in academia.
Wow.
That's the reason. That is why it's called scholarship.
Yeah.
The work is to be a scholar, not to be a sports person.
Yeah.
So really, it's not enough just for you to be a sports person. Now, another thing that the reason why I was saying first class, second class, and first class distinction are very, very important, especially out of the country. And for me, when I'm also interacting with students, I give a lot of weight to it. It's because, you and me, for example, we are working now, and our pay, our grading, the way we are determined in the institution is basically by how do we perform in the jobs that we are doing. The same happens even to students. It's only that for a student, the primary work or the primary job of a student is to study.
Yeah.
So if you can show that you have got distinction, you have got first class, it shows me as a person who is recruiting you for the scholarship that you're diligent in your job. And this goes even beyond just your scholarship, even in the workplace. If you get outside Kenya and you go to other countries, the US, the UK, and the Canada, for example, and other countries, really, not just our local countries, you come to see that people really appreciate and put some weight onto these degrees and these degrees that you earn. I'm not saying it's the only thing, but for real, it is one of the most important things.
Wow.
Before you even say, I can play basketball, can you be in academia? Will you really be in academia? Because that's what you're being recruited for. So it's incredibly important that people get to understand that.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's something to note for everybody who's listening. So make sure, the aim of a scholarship is not to promote your basketball or whatever career. It's about scholarly excellence. So scholarship. So make sure that your grades or your children's or whoever relevant is getting the good grades. Now, I'd like us
I'm
now.
not rubbishing the talent. Actually.
Yeah.
It's also important. But it's not the key thing. Probably if we take it as percentages, you will probably have 80% going into academics and academic capability, or maybe 70% academic capability, then 20% in your sports and co-curriculum activities, and maybe 10% will be other things like diversity, like gender, and maybe community service.
Wow.
So it still plays a part, but someone should not make a mistake that it really accounts for 70% or 80%. No, it does not.
Wow. Okay. Okay, I think that's a very good background to give us as we go along in this conversation. Now, I want us to go to the nitty gritty of now applying for these scholarships. You have told us that if we are looking for scholarships directly through the universities, we can check if they're offering. We can look for these highly competitive ones, for the government ones like the Chevening and so on and so forth. So probably we have identified one or two scholarships that we are interested in pursuing. Now let's go to the deep details of it. So when you are doing your scholarship, I want you to tell us what a good scholarship looks like. We talk about the personal statement, we talk about referees, we talk about all those things. Now take us through a step-by-step guide of how to write a good application that gets us at least somewhere. If we're looking at being the only 3 in 100 people, how are we going to push ourselves closer to being among those 3?
Yeah, so that's for real. I don't know whether you want us to we'll talk later about where to get this scholarship, but let me just answer your question first on what does it entail to have the process of applying and what puts you there, because that's the gist of this conversation, first of all. And forgive me if I'll be biased a little bit towards PhD and all that, because that's where the bulk of the funding is, but people can definitely borrow some ideas out of all that. I personally won a fully funded scholarship from the University of Liverpool. And what does a fully funded scholarship look like, first of all? A fully funded scholarship means that the university will be paying all your tuition fee, first of all. They'll pay all your tuition fee. A tuition fees for some universities could be 28, 30,000 per year, and they'll pay it up to 5 years. For example, in my case, my funding is available for up to 5 years. I might not utilize all the 5 years. So that means that is 150,000 pounds, first of all. Yeah, 30 times 5, 150,000 pounds. That is one. Then secondly, after that, they'll give you stipend. Now, I'll talk about the stipend because stipend is a public information. It's there. It's standard in a country like UK, it's standard. So the stipend in the UK is 18,000 pounds per year. That is basically your upkeep money, 18,000 pounds per year, and the amount is untaxed. This is always paid per month, as long as you can continue you can show satisfactory progress in your work. So every month you're paid around £1,551 as part of your stipend, as part of your upkeep, and that is not taxed. So that is what a stipend involves. You're also given research money, you can travel for conferences, you can be funded for training. There's a lot of things that comes. So there's a huge cost. So as you can expect, and as I've said, it is extremely competitive.
Yeah.
But how then do you beat all this competition? The first thing that you do when you want to win a scholarship is your academic papers. I can guarantee that 99, if not 100% of the people who we won this scholarship with were actually all distinction graduates. All of us either scored distinction or first class or something of the sort. I'm not saying it is the only thing that is required, and I'm not saying 100% of the people who get scholarship actually also get first class, but I say this appears to be the norm. So the first thing is make sure your degrees, make sure your papers are really, really, really good. The second thing that matters here, number 2, is that those students who went through research route or have got some idea or experience in research tend also to be more considered when it comes to funding. And by that, I mean, we have got 2 types of masters, MSc, Masters
in Science. Yeah.
And then we have got the MA, Masters in Arts, MBA, Masters in Business Administration, and we have got the MRes, Masters by Research. So Masters by Research students are actually more favored when it comes to funding.
Mm-hmm.
And Masters by Research is basically that you're becoming a master's student, but you are not taught like the traditional master's student. You are completing your master's mainly through research. You're doing research. Okay?
So
that's what it is.
So what does that look like? Okay, you're not mostly in the class setting and whatnot. You're doing a lot of research. So what does it look like? What percentage are you in a class, and what percentage are you with your supervisor who's doing the research? So an MRes, is it a 1 or 2 year kind of master's program? And what does it look like? Are you in class sometimes, or is it fully you land there and you decide, I'm doing research on this, and that's all that you do?
No, master's by research basically is that you are doing your course but by research. So you can do MSc management, which means you're coming to be taught by a lecturer and lecturers to be a management graduate. You have masters in management.
Mm-hmm.
But MRes means you are graduating to be a researcher in management, not a manager by research. There's a mix up there. So you're becoming more of you're becoming a researcher, but within management. So 80% of your time will be you doing research, writing up some sort of a research project, and 20% will be taught. Taught meaning you'll be taught only research methods, qualitative methods, quantitative methods, not how to be a project manager. You'll not be taught entrepreneurship. You'll not be taught leadership. You'll not be taught all those.
I
You'll
see.
be taught how to do research, because the thing is for you to be doing research. Most degrees, about 90% of master's degrees in the UK are 1 year degrees.
Yeah.
And for someone who has been here, you know that can be shorter.
Yeah.
If you come in September, because
Yeah.
September to December to maybe May, then you remain with dissertation.
Yeah.
So technically, it's only about 9 months. Same to MRes. Most universities in the UK offer MRes, but I've seen that some of them nowadays want you to do it away from UK, or they try to encourage you to do away from the UK. Because
Okay.
basically you are a researcher, basically.
Yeah.
So yeah, that happens, but you can still do it within the UK and become an MRes person. So
Okay.
as I was saying, the people who graduate with this MRes therefore have got some foundational skills on research. And when they apply to institutions to do PhDs and the others, they tend to be more favored. Okay? They tend to be more favored because they have got some foundational skills on research. And therefore they also seem to be getting more funding than the other people. So that is the reality of the thing. That is the reality of things. Another thing, other than your degree and other than doing MRes, other things that will matter will be personal statement. And you know my stand when it comes to personal statement,
Yeah.
because I've discussed it before. I always tell people, personal statement has to be a story, and a captivating story. Imagine you are applying for the same scholarship, 300, 400 of you, and they only need 10 people out of 400 people. To be honest, all those applications will be read. So nobody will be skipped. The goal is not to have your application read, because it will actually be read. The goal is to have your application be memorable. To be memorable. Can people remember your story? Do you have a story? Personal statements is an opportunity for you to speak for yourself in your absence, to speak for yourself in writing, to say, I, Dennis, I am the best for this PhD position. I'm the best for this funding position because of this. It's like your cover letter. Because of this other one, because of these other things. So I'll state my life story, how my personal life really touches into this PhD, my qualifications, why do I like this university, why do I like this course. The problem is students write generic personal statements. Oh, I am a hardworking, diligent, lovely person. What is that? Diligent, lovely person.
Yeah, they say, so what?
Yes, so what? Yeah, if it comes to personal statements, yeah, it's not a matter of saying, it's a matter of showing. So show your enthusiasm by the way you talk about what you did. I participated in a heart marathon, something like that, heart run marathon within Nairobi, and this raised this money. I was part of the volunteers who arranged the COP26 event. Is it COP26 or
28?
And this really exposed me to this and that. Those are the stories people want to hear. So I've been involved in rescue of maybe women who are undergoing FGM in the northern Kenya, and this is how we rescued them. Tell stories, and these stories must be really memorable stories. This will be remembered more than you saying, I'm nice, I'm great. Because by the time you are applying, we are assuming you are nice.
Yeah.
Or pulling down that you're nice does not make a difference. Everybody will say they are nice. Show that you're nice.
I
Yeah.
think what you're saying is so important. Just the way you say, just like your cover letter and everything. I'm nice. I'm a good fit for this job. I'm a good fit for this scholarship, because you have to show, don't tell. And I think that's a very important thing, because even in journalism where I currently practice and communications, they say you don't tell. If you're telling, then you're doing it wrong. You have to just show. So it's about storytelling. I should be able to deduce from what you're saying that, oh, you are a good person, you're a person who is proactive and whatnot. And that brings me to the other point, that you actually have to be doing something, because the way you're saying, I participated, whether it's in this heart run, or I was one of the people who brought together people to rescue girls who are being assaulted in a place or something. So you need to be doing something, yeah, to stand out. If you're doing everyday things, then so what? So you need to be active in your community. That's what I'm hearing.
Absolutely. You have to be active in your community, otherwise you don't have a story. And actually, I've put it right. It's about storytelling. You have to be a very good storyteller. Your story should be memorable. People should remember. And people, if I read brilliant personal statement, students starting with a quote about something like Obama's and the way this, and then they connect it with how it connected with their real life, and then they build that into their real life. Now, when we say something, someone could be doing something or should be doing something, we don't necessarily mean something massive. I've seen undergrad students, I've seen master students, okay, really explain a very simple thing into a very touching story. For example, a student comes and says, after finishing college, I could not get a job immediately. I retreated to my father's home in the village, in the rural village. And what did I do there? I helped my father by bringing this innovative irrigation system where we saved this amount of water and multiplied the production in the farm by this number of times. Wow, that is just nice. That's nice to hear. So this is a person who just did a basic thing, be in the shamba with the
Yeah.
farm. He saved
Yeah.
his father a lot of water. Maybe he brought the drip irrigation or some this planting in bags, and how it improved, saved a lot of water, really made everything easy for the father. He solved a very massive problem that we could see. Or maybe he just maybe improved or changed some sort of maybe selling value addition on milk that the father was milking, and he just did some value addition. That's what people want to hear. People necessarily don't want to hear that you are CEO, a senior manager.
Yeah.
They want
Wow.
to see the impact. It's more of impact that you left with people rather than what you are doing and the titles. It's not about titles. And
Wow.
you know the UK system, they don't care about titles.
Yes. Yes.
They
Yes.
don't care about it.
I think that is very powerful, what you're saying. It's, you have to be able to tell a story and tell it well. The way you said, it doesn't have to be you're doing this grand thing. Just like that story you're saying about the boy who had to go back to his rural home. It's how you tell the story that really matters. And it's brought out something that I've remembered someone was talking about one time, and we'll talk about this because I know you're also passionate about it, AI. There was someone who was saying that sometimes people are getting jobs not because they are better than you, but because they can tell a story much better than you, and they're even using AI to help them tell stories. So people are now putting in AI in this chat GPT and whatnot. This is my experience and whatnot. Come produce something, a story for me from that. So people are using that, and then you're unable to tell your story, yet you're better than this other person. But that's a whole other story. But we'll talk about that, or maybe let's talk a little bit about that. We're talking about saying a story. We have a story, but maybe we are not the most excellent of storytellers. How good or bad is it to start using AI to help you write your application? Because that personal statement, they say that people can pick an AI generated thing. So is it a good idea to let AI help you a little bit with your personal statement, or you just need to be as creative as you can be and see how it goes?
Yeah, you say people can detect AI generated material, and I am people. I am people. I can tell you, I handle ChatGPT. It's my personal assistant. I work with it. I know it in and out. I will read a student's paragraph and I know this is ChatGPT through and through. That's for real. So ChatGPT, we know it. Other than the terminologies that it uses that like delve into and all those kind of things, we know a ChatGPT and how it writes. So please, I don't really discourage my students personally from using ChatGPT. I never do that. But I always tell my students, you are using a ChatGPT as a personal assistant. Do not outsource your brain
Welcome.
to ChatGPT. Do not outsource the thinking to ChatGPT. Don't let it do the thinking for you. Do the thinking and then let it write for you. For example, if you are in a law firm and you're a lawyer and you want your secretary to write a brief to the court, you don't just tell the secretary, write a brief to the court. No. You come to the secretary and tell them, write a brief to this court, telling them this and this is our demand, and maybe if there is an amount, quote this amount and all that. Do this and do not do this other thing. That is what you should be doing. Okay? This is what you should be doing with ChatGPT. ChatGPT should not be an entity of its own. Don't outsource your brain into ChatGPT for it to do for you. Do it with it. Let it be a prompt, some sort of a support or a backup support. So I believe people can create their own stories deep down their heart. Write your story from deep down your heart. Then you can tell ChatGPT, this is the story. Please spruce it up in a better language, in a better correct grammatical errors, correct spelling errors, improve the flow. But the baseline is that the story is yours. The story is yours. This goes into even students doing assignments. You can do all your assignment or large bits of the assignment with your own work. Then tell ChatGPT, can you please correct the grammar, correct the flaws, give me an idea of how I can improve this, how do you think about the structure, and then use it. It is your personal assistant. It is not a means for you to outsource your brain and your thinking to ChatGPT and AI. If you do that, you're doing it wrong. I see students being terminated from studies all the time because they never think they'll be caught, but you get caught by just telling ChatGPT to do things for you.
Wow.
One day, maybe we'll talk about how to use ChatGPT properly in academia.
Yeah. I think that's a conversation that will need to have, AI in academia and how to use it wisely, because you said you're not outsourcing your brain, you're just letting it help you, but you still need to use your brain. So I think that's a very important thing. So we'll have that conversation one of these fine days. So you've talked about writing that compelling story. Use the art of storytelling to tell something, and it doesn't have to be something grand. You don't need to don't need to talk about how you are the leader here as CEO of what. Just have your own personal story and transform it into something that really matters. Now, that is making a powerful personal statement. Now, tell us, what are some of the things we should also be looking at when it comes to, or first of all, which other documents are we looking at? We're looking at the personal statement. What other documents are accompanying our application? There's the references and whatnot. Take us step by step after the personal statement.
Academic or professional references. We usually say it because it's generic. It is. I mean, it's standard. It's a no-brainer that you will need a reference letter from your academic supervisor or an academic mentor or your former lecturer or something. But believe me, some of the reference letters you see are not worth anything, are not worth the paper they're written on. To be honest, they are not worth the paper they're written on. First of all, some of them are just too generic. Again, oh, Dennis was a brilliant person, very lovely person, hardworking, very. What is the value addition? Everybody will say all that. This is also an opportunity for your supervisor, for your professor, for your lecturer to go deep and describe you and your achievement. Yeah, you can say Dennis participated in a research to maybe study the effects of gender microaggression in organizations here in Kenya in a project that we did with him. He suggested he used a very innovative methodology where he combined structural topic method with natural language processing, which was very novel. And these were some of the brilliant findings that he got, you know. And these findings by Dennis has been widely maybe used in the industry or cited, has been praised, or has received an award. Don't just say Dennis was good. Show why you think Dennis was good. What did he do? What was the end game? So these are the things we say. Again, many people don't know. They are like templates. You will read and imagine you've read the same thing over and over again, because people are just hardworking, diligent, observant, honest. It does not add any value. Yet another competitor, the supervisor will be explaining, will be storytelling on their behalf what he did, what he used, what he found, what he impacted. That's very important. So this is what it should be. Again, other than the content of the recommendation letters, do not forget that also the name on the recommendation letter matters. Yeah, who is recommending you? There are people who are recommended by the top professors, people who are known in the industry, people who are respected in the industry. Those people tend to get an upper hand because the person, the recommender, is known. So you may not beat this, but also just try to position yourself in a way that you are, if it's competitive and you're going for a funding, your references should add value, should not just add paperwork, should add value. So your professor could not be internationally, we could not know him by that, but if you tell me Dr. Otieno, I can just go and see Dr. Otieno. What has he done? What is he doing? What project? And say, this is a person worth his salt. So if he recommends Claire, then Claire must also be a good student.
Wow.
That is what happened.
Wow. I'm hearing quite a lot of things here. First of all, you cannot be the kind of student who just went to class to fill in. You are in class and sit your exams and whatnot. You need to be proactive, because how is the lecturer going to know that Claire or Dennis did this and that if you are the kind of person who never, participated in anything other than group work? You know, the way they say group work is a nightmare because half of the people are never there and whatnot. So your lecturer really needs to know you and know you personally. Otherwise, they are going to be giving you, first of all, they may not even give you that recommendation letter or reference letter, or if they do, they may give you that one that you're saying is just wasting paper. He was a good person, he was a good student, he scored this. They just go and check what your GPA was. So you have to be proactive and really have a relationship with that lecturer to see that, okay, you participated in this kind of research, maybe you helped him or her there. So you need to be like really proactive. So you need to have this in mind that, okay, maybe I will be wanting to do my master's or my PhD, so I need to be out there. I'm not just sitting to do my exams and go home and get my degree. So proactivity is something that I'm hearing is very important. And then really telling your lecturer to write a very good recommendation. Don't just say I was diligent. Don't just say I got this 3.9 GPA. Really tell a story about you. So wow, that's quite important. So I think that's that's something that you really need to have in mind. So you have to have a strong reference, and then who, as you said, who it is. It may not necessarily be an internationally renowned professor or whatnot, but this needs to be a lecturer that when I Google, I can see, okay, they participated in this research, they have been here, there. It's not a person that you may struggle to know what they are doing. So who also really matters. So, okay, so we have a strong reference letter. We have a strong personal statement. What else do we need to have?
CV. Your CV should be good enough. Your CV should show that you have been progressing either in your career or you're doing something meaningful. And this could be anything from volunteering, which people really underestimate. But the time you spend in volunteering, the time you spend at work really matter. So again, when you're writing this CV, put it brief. You're not applying for a job. Just keep it brief. Focus on the impact you had. Not on what the titles you held necessarily, but on the impact you had. So you are a customer service team leader. What did you solve? Okay, maybe you oversaw a complete overhaul of a system from this to this, and then this help the company to save 80,000 or 8 million dollars down the line. So
Let me
focus
ask
on them
you.
on that.
Yeah. Let me ask you, for somebody who is maybe, let's say somebody who's going for a master's degree, for example, and they're going straight out of doing their bachelor's. You know, the way some people don't necessarily want to work for those 3 years or 4 years. They just want to do their bachelor's and then they do their master's. Okay, you can talk about volunteering the way you said, but how are you going to make yourself stand out if you don't have that much experience to show that impact that you're saying? You know, you've only maybe volunteered for a year and whatnot, and maybe you've not been able to save that $80,000 that you're talking about. How can you make an impact, a very impactful statement about what you did in that short period of time before applying for that master's or PhD?
Yeah, because you have to know that impactful things don't necessarily have to take a lot of time. That's also for sure. So if you're applying for your own funded, self-funded opportunities, actually any CV will float. We're talking about almost anything. I can draft you a 10-minute CV and you're sure you'll be taken into some university. That's for sure. But if you're expecting to be funded by organizations like Chevening, like organizations like Commonwealth, you have to show what impact have you had in the society, what have you participated in, yeah, what have you solved, what kind of a problem have you solved, you know. So you could have probably not worked, as an example I told you, you might not have worked in the in a mainstream employment, but you worked in a farm. This is what you solved. You are the first person to maybe think about this in your father's farm, for instance. Or there was maybe what do you call it? These feminism issues in Kenya, and maybe women are being killed all there, and you led a protest, or you led an activity, or you led some sort of a protest march or something, or you participated in some sort of a thing. Those are some of the things you can show. Again, the things you do with your talent. Yeah, maybe you write blogs about this topic. Maybe you showcase videos. You do YouTube videos. The people underestimate these things.
Yeah.
But you never know. One time you come for a PhD in journalism, and you can say, yeah, I have got my own conversation channel on LinkedIn. And then people will ask, where did she get the experience and the impact? This is the impact you're talking about.
Yeah.
Bringing mainstream conversations for free to people to listen. That is one of the impact. And anyone can do this. Yeah. So when you think about impact, necessarily does not mean major thing. Could be the things you do even alongside your daily work. It could have nothing to do with employment at all. It could have nothing to do with employment. It could be things you do outside work, things you do at home, things you do to improve your own situation and people's situation as a whole. Yeah.
Wow. I think that is very critical. You just really need to know how to put yourself out there and show the best version of yourself, because sometimes people are doing things, but they think that it doesn't count. They think that volunteering opportunity that they had some 6 months ago doesn't really count. So everything counts, but you need to have had impact. What you keep on mentioning then is impact. So when you go for that volunteering opportunity, don't just be there, you clock in every day 8 and then leave at 5. What are you doing? Are you seeing a problem that you can solve in your own little way? So make sure you are making impact so that you can stand out. And the way you said that the CV should not be something long and windy and whatnot, just keep it brief and just show like impact. That's the word that keeps on coming out, impact. So after the CV, is there any other document that we should be looking at?
So I think I've talked about academic documents, the personal statement, the CV, and in the CV, if you can show, especially for PhD and likes, if you can show that you have been teaching or you have got a passion for teaching, that could be also a plus. So I think technically those will be the main ones. Those will be the main documents that we needed. Maybe English, but in a country like the UK, you don't have to prove that you are good in English, provided you passed your English in high school. Yeah, I know things keep changing here, and I've had a conversation about English test here and there, but as far as things stands, you don't have to show a lot. So those are simply the documents. If you're going for a research, you have to also give your proposal. Now that proposal also has to meet some some standards. And if I just mention two very quickly, the proposal that you put is a very critical item, very critical. I can say it's one of the most important documents. So if you're applying for PhD or Embrace and you want funding, you have first of all to write a very, very robust research proposal. And this research proposal, nowadays, I see what people try to make to become competitive is that they try to have multidisciplinary or interdisciplinary studies, which means you're not just studying gender, not gender alone, but you're studying gender and climate change. So you're talking about impact of climate change on women in rural Kenya. You see, you've combined those two. Or sexual harassment against women in tea farms in Kenya. That is supply chain and gender. Take note of that. And beyond that, you also have to be very aware of the contemporary topics. That is the truth. Politics everywhere, so you have to be aware of those contemporary topics. Topics like gender at work, racial discrimination, climate change, sustainability, water as a resource, AI. Those are the in thing. And universities will really want to look at that. What are you doing? Can we see that they want to look at that? Now, I don't say the others are meaningful, are not meaningful. But if you come with a topic, let's say, fraud in banking sector, it's a good topic, but we want things that make the news.
Yeah.
We might not talk about it that way, but that is the truth.
That's the truth.
Professors want things that will put them in the limelight, not just things that will be shelved away. So you have to look at those topics. And most of the students, I see students talking about, I don't know, testing foods in a restaurant, how client, I don't know, test food. Those will not go anywhere. But someone who comes with something, even sometimes, depending on the country, topics like LGBTQ really get a lot of funding. Women get a lot of funding. Water as a resource get a lot of funding. Poverty alleviation, people in the refugee camps, legal immigration and illegal immigrations. Those are things that you want to do. So if you want to put yourself ahead of the queue, that's what you do. And not just that, another thing you can do is also ensure that you have agreed with a professor upfront. People also underestimate this thing. You know, if I apply and you apply for the same job in the same CV, and you went ahead and you talked to a professor somewhere, and the professor told me, told you, Claire, I think I can supervise your work. And just you attach that email to your application. You are miles ahead of me.
Okay.
Yeah, because what the first question that comes really in the interview, even when you come for PhD, is have you identified a professor in our department who can supervise or who has an expertise to your work? If you say yes, I know so and so, she has even agreed, and this is the confirmation. She's doing similar work. This is how my work adds to them. I'm telling you, you are in there. You are now in the center of things. Rather than someone who's just trying their luck, you don't even know there's expertise or there's not. You don't know what other professors are doing in the department. You might not get the funding. That is the truth. So I also probably will talk about how to write cold emails to professors, because there's a way it should be written. There's a way it should be written.
Wow.
Not the things people do sometimes. You don't just send letters. There's a way you should be writing to a professor, asking them to supervise you. For example, you must know what they're doing, and you must show them how your work ties to their work. You must be brief and concise. I know Kenyans will have a lot of greetings. No greetings. No greetings.
Get to the point.
Get to the point. Say, my name is Dennis. I'm registering for a PhD in October. I've looked at your work, especially your work in AI, and I'm really fascinated. I would love to extend your work by researching or exploring ethics within AI. I therefore believe that we can add value to each other. The attached is my extended abstract. Please look at it, and if you can't help, please refer me to another professor who can do it. They will look at it, they'll say, okay, Dennis, I don't think I can help you. I'm ever overwhelmed, and I can't help you, and they'll refer you to another professor. Or they'll tell you, if you change this bit to not be AI in maybe supply chain, maybe put it AI in banking, I can supervise that. You know, that's milestone. That's a super big step ahead. So that really puts you ahead. And we'll talk about those when we get them. But those are the things, the proposal, the impact that you want to do to have. And
Wow.
then just do your own proposal. Don't let anyone do it for you. Do it because you'll answer questions in the interview about that proposal.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Those are gems that you're dropping for us, Dennis. And we will have to have a part 2 and probably even a part 3 of this conversation, because there's so much to unpack, and what we're doing is just the surface level. And I'm seeing time is really going. But I'd like to sample some of the questions that are coming in, and then we will plan for a part 2 and a part 3, because there's so much to unpack. Elizabeth Njiru was saying, this was in reference to the earlier rules that you had talked about. Do the same rules apply for other universities across Europe and Canada? This was when you were talking about the having the bank statements, having all those things that you had talked about initially before you can get your to travel to do your PhD or your master's or bachelor's degree. So are there different rules for different countries? Can you work longer hours, maybe more than 20 hours if you're going to Canada or other countries across Europe, or what is that like? And then there's also another question here about, is it easier, this is Sydney Opio, he's saying, is it easier to get a scholarship for a second master's in the UK? So you have a master's, then now you're thinking, oh, maybe I have my master's, maybe I'll be better positioned to get a scholarship now.
Yeah, so the second question is that having a first master's and you want to do a second master is actually a disadvantage. Winning scholarship, because scholarships are there to have as many people helped as possible. So if you already reached that level, really, you have to justify.
Yeah.
Not only that, even getting an admission in some UK universities now is going to be difficult, because you have to prove, even to the UK government sometimes, they ask you, what are you really interested in education? Why do you want another master's? You have to show how it adds value. For example, it could be that you have done project management or IT, and now you want to do MBA to be a business leader. You have to show. Otherwise, if you just say, I did master's in innovation, now I want to do master's in project management, a university might give you admission, but the visa office might have a problem with that. So just other than that, again, getting a scholarship now, you can imagine how difficult that can be. Now, on the first question about how impactful, the difference in different countries, of course, every country has got different visa regimes. Yeah. Some countries, I know Canada up to some time, is it last year? Probably up to this year, I'm not too sure. They were allowing students to work longer than 30 hours and so. So it was a bit flexible for students who wanted to work in Canada. In the UK, the rules are 20. Not too sure whether anything has been updated in Australia. They keep updating things every day. So I'll have to check again what Australia is doing. But these are rules for different countries. Honestly, these are rules for different countries. I think the basic thing that we can all, however, agree on is the kind of documentation also. It will differ depending on the country you're going to. There are those countries that will need a little bit more than what I've said, yeah, or types of documents might be different. And I've given a very quick example. UK needs a statement mandatory in your account for 28 days, and that statement might not be older than 30 days. Okay, I hope I'm not mixing myself. So this is it. The money should be in your account for at least 28 days. And when you print the statement after the 28 days, you must use it within 30 days. You must use the statement within 30 days.
Wow.
Canada needs maybe 3 months money to be in the account for 3 months. Okay. These amounts are usually calculated using exchange rates. The standard exchange rate that is used for visa is usually called the OANDA calculators.